this morning, right? We are Elise. We're excited to share our rolls with peanut butter. Who loves their peanut butter? With our cup of morning tea, right? We want every to really relate to the early morning breakfast mornings that we enjoy as family together. And while we are enjoying our morning drink, we are actually sharing in the goodness of our generation's color this morning. We had a few discussions the past few weeks on our breakfast morning about the nationality African and having to be in the Africanism of your season and having to hold on onto the education that we have had as Africans, and unto that is owning that right to represent Africa and to still be fine representing Africa. We have learned in our generation that the challenge of representing and being firm on that for the African national people, right? For people who's from Africa, for the African born children, and sometimes the world has sometimes made it challenging to own the Africa within your season. And some people wanted us to transform to that they want to accept us as Africans how they want to accept us. And they want to have us be where they want to have us be, and they want to have us color how they want a generation to color. But we have learned that the universe's colors require different from the African children. And for African people, it is that requirement while we are required to not transform to color how someone else colors, right? Color is representing you in your season. Color is your reaction, you in your season. Color is owning your business where your business is at. And with AWOKH business, it is that representation that is firm to how Ribea Elise owns her business. And how Ribea Elise voices for that is AWOKH business, that is Ribea Elise owning where she's at in a season. And when we're required to educate like that, it is easy for us to, when people show interest, right, to what we do in our season, then it's easy for us to transform into what other people want your business to be, where other people want your business to be at, how other people want you to represent in your business and to voice your business, right? And we have learned to own that is us within what we do and within how we represent ourselves in our seasons. And that's why what our discussion today, we want to be firm on where our generation is coloring the representation that is you in your season is where we own, where we find ourselves at in our seasons. And we are firm with that, and we are not going to have our business be transformed into the requirement and the pain of our generation. We are going to have our business be Ribea Elise owning her opinion, while our generation has to learn to manage offers and to manage finances and to manage countries in a way that the people that are in the countries are owning where they're at in their seasons. And for parliamentary leaders and parliamentary houses, they would not need to want to transform the person where they are at, but they would need to learn to listen to what is the requirements of managing where we are at in our seasons. And that is what I want to focus on with our breakfast morning talk today. We wanted to have a nice outdoor morning, yes, and we were actually not even able to do that. It's not too sunny, and it's August month, and we are appreciating the amazingness of the season. For August month in New Zealand and in South Africa, it is winter season, right? And I find myself in Auckland, New Zealand, So I'm appreciating the completion of winter season, right? And by 1st of September, we are ready for spring season, and we are ready to share in the excitement of the blossoming season also. Yes, we didn't have a lot of rain through winter other countries, so y'all are not probably gonna have such a cold winter where y'all are at, or it's probably going to be very cold where y'all are at, because our winter season has been very warm. It's been winter, but it's been a month where you could have gone a season, like 3 months that we could have gone to the beach throughout these 3 months, and it's been amazing. And even the month of August was also like you can go to the beach, right? And you can go and enjoy some time at the beach, right? The month of August was really beachy vibes, and probably a lot of people was probably on the beach already, because Auckland is beach, it's water, it's warm, it's kind, and so everyone was probably already on the beach vibes of New Zealandness. Another thing that I wanted to mention is just that when we find ourselves in that is the business, the Ribea Elise in the business, and introducing your household, your everyday self in your business. I know that many business managers and business owners has learned to remain to that. That is the introduction of the business owner has never been that visible to humanity. But the requirement for business owners to be introduced to our generation is that our generation has been abused a lot. The current state of our generation, that is the poverty state of our generation, has really had us be in that is the 50% advanced people and the 50% poverty people, that really had to learn to not be aggressive because of the situation at hand, but learn to know who was responsible for why countries and certain countries cannot get out of that. There is a poverty state that is aggressing humanity in general, right? When people find themselves that they require things and it's there, and other people are provided for and some people are not provided, then it can somewhat aggress humanity. And only because of that, we want we gotta shift our breakfast morning discussions to that. There is a bit more on the business side of our education that we do on our HR 2023, but on a more personal level, right? On a more personal level of discussion, on a more personal room of discussion, right? We say our AWOKH corner is our room. It is our us owning the personal opinion that we have, right? Our AWOKH business represents that is the structuring in our generation, right? The restructuring in our generation, but there is also the personal opinion of humanity, and that is what our AWOKH business represents, and that is what our initiative is to represent with owning our opinion and with making sure that our opinion in our business and in how we represent and how we educate business owners to not be so easily transformed and to not be so easily aggressed to transform countries, but to be firm on what is it that they represent in their business, right? When you take ownership of where you find yourself at, you are more easily to nurture and to be kind to that you have the ownership of, and that you find yourself as a human learning to listen to the situation on a human level. We are so much required to listen to situation on an office mindset and a computerized requirement that requires us to abide to this and this and this process. But when we learn to apply your human opinion, that is gonna be, how do you listen to what's required in office? How do you listen to what's required in our generation? How do you respond to that is required in our generation, rather than being so easily transformed to expect everyone to now look at this business and to now listen to it in a way that some people call it, that it is required to be an office environment, right? Business owners learn that business in our generation are different. And our business opinions are therefore going to be different. And our requirement in our generation are different to requirements that other generations had before our generation, right? Our generation has really provided a lot when it comes to a business. And our generation is really not given much attention to the person that is employed at the business, right? The employee was most of the times deprived in the employment that they were employed at, right? The employee was that person that found themselves most of the time having to give so much hours, having to give 40 hours a week, having to give 5 days out of the 7 days of the week to that is restructuring and building and constructing a business, and where the person itself was not given the advantage to own their opinion and to represent themselves in the protective requirement in the state that is going to be physically fine, that is mentally fine, that is psychologically fine for the employee itself. And that is where our mental wellness training focuses on, and our mental wellness mentorships focuses on, is that on a mental state, we have given so much of ourselves to the discussion room. We have given so much of ourselves to the office, to the building, to that is the economic skill state. I cannot get that word even right. The economy. Not that I do not want to say that the economically approved side of our generation. We have given so much of us to the economically approved part of our generation. So it's been approved by the office environment. It's financially that households are being provided and supplied from that environment and from that part of the earth itself, and that mankind is given so much to the economically approved part of our generation. All the other parts of our generation has not been approved, and it had our generation look like the poverty state that it is in. But the economically part of our generation has been given so much attention to that the world is now on 50% poverty and in 50% provided for, only because the part of our generation that was approved was not including every human being on earth. And that is why I want to get the wording right, because I want to focus on that with my 8-side business restructuring education on every Monday on our Facebook page. And that we're going to also make visible on our YouTube page. So the economically approved part of humanity, that is that part of humanity, that is the provision made for that is our everyday requirements, right? And the disadvantage part was that some people find themselves at today in the poverty of not having that are required for, and not having that everyone requires in season. And therefore, our generation needs to learn to focus on that is the ownership of where our generation has to be provided for, who has ownership of it, and who's going to represent with taking ownership of where we are at with managing and with owning our businesses itself, with representing ourselves with our opinions, with where we are required to be at, and with making sure that we do not transform our opinions into what someone else requires us to say or to have us be at. We do not transform ourselves into that, and we own our businesses in that we are firm to say that our generation's representation is that the business are owned by Ribea Elise, the person. And Ribea Elise introduces herself on the social media pages, and Ribea Elise affirmed to say that my representation is that I make provision for both the business side as well as the person that is the society, that is the community in general, that forms part of the amazingness of mankind on earth. And once our generation learn to educate on that level, our generation would find themselves out of the aggressions, out of the wars, out of the arguments that are disadvantaging more financially stable than the other side of our generation. And we need to get our explanations right. I always say explain in a very simple way because my mama educated me, my child. And if I'm the parent in that room, in another country, in another generation, and I cannot read and write, how would you explain that I had a mama, her name was Anna, but Anna looks like Anna, and Anna is there, that mama also looks like my mama Anna, and in another country is also one looks like mama Anna, and then my mama Anna said, and I'm there, I cannot read and write, and how would you then explain to me? And then Ribea Elise says, I own where I'm at. I introduce myself in the most amazingest and in the most simplest ways of life, and I can explain a situation in the most professional way, and I can explain it and owning where I'm at. Ribea Elise explaining and voicing where she's at in a season, and that is where our generation needs to learn to listen to what is the requirement that a generation has with where they find themselves at in their seasons. We have a lot that we can do, right? But what I'm laughing because I'm thinking about something and I'm not gonna say what I was thinking about now. Let me just explain it also in this way. We have a lot that parliamentary leaders can do, but we have a lot that society can do. And where Ribea Elise is giving her opinion about is the fact that AWOKH business represents AWOKH business. And Ribea Elise owns AWOKH business. And the AWOKH business has started in a season where Ribea Elise has not yet learned all that was happening in our generation. And when Ribea Elise was required to do what Ribea Elise loves doing, right? I love motivating, I love educating, I love representing, I love giving an opinion that's gonna be fine and protected for everyone and for all the colors that I'm being introduced to. I love having to learn to color at a season where someone requires an answer. Some people say sometimes it's not necessary for everyone to give an answer, and that might be challenging. And everyone says, but in this world we have learned that we are all even answering with our every reaction. People are even tuned in on it. So we might as well represent with that is owning your business with what you are doing. When we own what we are doing, we have an opportunity to represent to that is gonna be advantaged to everyone, right? That's gonna give everyone the opportunity to have what they require. We have an opportunity to educate on that is not necessarily what someone else wants you to do, but you have an opportunity to educate to that is going to be constructive on how the situation looks with where you are at in your season. So for every country, I always say it is different. Every country's requirements are different. Every country's challenges are different. Every country's opportunities that they give are sometimes different, and every country people requires them to respond to that. That is what is the requirement sometimes where you are at, and when you are in an international level, and when you can be on an international level, then what is the requirement that you can provide someone with that they require, and then what is required of you in that, right? What is required of Ribea Elise, the person, and what is required with where you are at. So you can sense sometimes when you start your business, then you sense it is something that some people knew they were going to do many years ago, right? Some people knew they were going to own their own businesses. And they just said that is the requirement to also respond to our generation's challenges that our generation have on a level where they find themselves at. And when you learn to respond, you learn to do it in a way that you do not sit in a room of managers where the managers want to overpower your opinion of where you are at. For people that knew exactly years ago that this is what they wanted to do, they exactly knew who they find themselves at and who they are at with where they are at, right? Who you find yourself at. Thank you for questioning. There's a lot of voices that I can hear behind the scenes on the computer room. So who you find yourself at is where you find yourself at in the office with managers, and the you in that office is who you find yourself at. You find yourself sometimes in the office with so many people that sometimes require you to respond to what they require you to respond to it. And the who you are being introduced to while you are sitting in a room with so many managers is that person. That is who do you find yourself at in that season that you are at. And that's why I say explain it very firmly, very directly, but it's not going to be that every time someone says something, then someone questions what we are saying, right? And that brings our generation in question and business people in question with what they're doing. What we are going to educate further on is that when you find yourself in a room where there's already people that has worked on how they manage business and where they require to be at, and then you find yourself having to learn what is going to be your opinion with where you are at. What are you required to invest into where you are at in business, right? And when you have to find yourself in that and have to own, you make sure that you own it with representing the you with where you find yourself at in business leaders discussions, in business managers meetings, and with where you are required to also give your opinion at. It is that we are not going to want ourselves to now, when we get into a meeting, then we just say yes to what everyone else is saying, and then everyone else has been part of the problem in this world already, and they have been busy with it for years, and they can listen to what is required of them to do rather than having to go on to create a problem with where our generation is at. And therefore, when we find ourselves have the seat of your opinion in the room, right? And don't go and chase people who are sitting on a seat, because many people did that. They went to go and chase people and struck them down who are sitting on a chair on social media. Yes, and people do that also, but do not go and disrupt the world with manipulation, I always say. Ribea, Elise is very firm, and don't manipulate what I'm saying, and don't manipulate what I am educating on in my season. But where your opinion are required in a generation where business managers already know how they are managing is what Ribea, Elise called the something new in the discussion room. And never have, and we're not talking about Israel Newton's baby, because that Israel Newton and that American celebrity house, they've got their opinion, and they have had their opinion for years, and they're also sometimes tuned in, and they're also sometimes interestingly appearing on a AWOKH business page there on my Facebook page, and they're interestingly sharing messages to the world via my Facebook page or their businesses or whoever it is that is doing that. Do it in a way that's non-abusive to AWOKH business on social media. And when you want to serve people stuff on my AWOKH business page on Facebook, and people are viewing in on that, and then serve your stuff through in a way that's non-abusive to humanity, because we are firmly really working on processes to get the world out of abuse, and we really still do not have time for emo items on Cape Town states that is not really there, while we are busy restructuring, really sometimes trying to be abusive. We are really now not gonna have that on our pages the whole time. And America knows I love them a lot, and I really on a level where I've not been tuned in on their celebrity house. I have really had a journey in the universe with their education that is amazing. And I am not going to have the African Americans or any American person be abused, but we require the American celebrities to really not work on ways that are going to be disruptive. We know that sometimes the celebrities are required and they sign a document and then they're required to go and disturb Ribea. Elise is about business about it. And we also know that some people just want to go and disturb Ribea. Elise is about business about it. And for those who just want to disturb their about business about it, Ribea Elise always say that do not do that if you know that it is going to be abusive to where Ribea is educating at in how our generation are being restructured. Yes, so our opinions that we have in when we are invited into business, into office environments, should always be there's something new. Yes, I've written the song also to say that, and I have written more music that I'm going to release sometime. Yes, and I'm excited about that. But other than that, our something new with our businesses and our something new with having to find ourselves in the restructuring of business in our generation is going to be your opinion, you taking ownership, you voicing your opinion where you find yourself at, in a parliamentary house, in a business office, in an organization, in whatever our generation might require of you, the person, to do. And when we find ourselves working in that mindset, it is that everyone else is gonna want you to say that I don't like a vote business and I don't like that person, but it is gonna be your opinion. And that is what my sister have educated me firmly, what I also represent in my season, but what can sometimes be destructive to business owners. When I had a problem with Melvina's business and Aisha business, and I did not understand why she was having to have to take a front row and having to take a run with it and having to have all Ribea Elise's colors there. And then I was firm about it on social media. My sister was firm in saying that do not be distracted. Own where you are at in your season. And if you cannot do that, then get out of social media and then do what you are required to do in the community or the society. And I have learned that for Ribea Elise, it was now not required to get out of social media, but it was required for me to learn to not get so easily distracted. And that is sometimes how we're going to have to be firm with one another, and how we're going to have to require everyone to be firm where they find themselves at in these seasons. And that is how business in this world is. If everyone knows it is competition, but you don't go and have a good laugh about disturbing someone else's day. And you also do not go and have a good laugh about disrupting the world more in poverty and about disrupting countries in poverty. Because that's then where Ribea Elise, I'm going to be firm about it, say, I can have a good laugh. And my university, I chopped my one teeth out so that this one is more a little bit longer. So that because my one false teeth was so much chopped about it. So that I can say that, you know what, sometimes it's good to have a good laugh and everyone has an amazing smile, but other times it's good to be firm to say that the way the world is looking, let your smile and let your good laugh not be disruptive to humanity in general, not be disruptive to where leaders are trying to structure our generation in general. Let your business smile, and above business smile is very amazing there, but I'm saying to people who surf their photos through on our page, you know, there's people that constantly surf their business photos through on our pages, and everyone is now running to just do this thing called a business, right? And while they're running and everyone says, Ribea, we've got the finances and people gave us the money before they gave it to you. Ribea says, where I'm at in my season, I'm really now not going to get aggressive about it, but I'm going to be firm in saying women don't go and abuse the world more, because the world is already so abusive and so aggressive where they're at. And that we also want to say to our sports, international sports teams that plays their sports for Ribea Elise and for, you know, whatever the discussion on social media is nowadays. Netherlands and South Africa was playing a rugby game the other day. South Africa is more stirred today with arguments and with fires at schools because of that rugby game. So it's a whole lot of things that the international sport teams also likes to represent the way that humanity requires them to. But sometimes we just need to listen to what is your opinion when you are in those discussions, and when you have to set out sports games in countries, then you don't go and have a Netherlands, Ribea Elise and Melvina sports game, and then you have your sports game in a way that is not going to abuse the country in general, in a way that is going to deal with a situation that whatever the business owners are finding challenging and are being challenged to it with where they are at, then the decision makers when it comes to our international sports, when it comes to our television presenters, when it comes to our radio stations, when it comes to our celebrity houses, the education that is required is going to be how are we going to give our opinion with the situation at hand. That is not a problem, but there is business owners exactly that might find themselves on different opinions, and that might find themselves having to run into one another because some people want them to run into one another the whole time. And it is those management processes that we always say that we are going to have to be firm about a generation looking like this, a generation when there's a sports game starting, an international sports game, then there's a war starting in another country. The international sports game was on, it was Netherlands and South Africa, it was a women's rugby game, it was on a week ago on a Saturday, and the Ethiopia is finding themselves in war after that. So we are going to be firm on how all of these amazingnesses are going to have to be managed in a way that is non-abusive to humanity. And that is what we're going to focus on our business restructuring education, where we want business leaders to still listen into our educations, and we want those implementations to happen in countries that is really finding themselves being challenged, and that is really going to be not abused by the more advantaged countries, and that is going to be countries like Africa, countries like Russia, Ukraine, that finds themselves in all of those abuses and all of those comments during this season, that we know sports can be very much fine, but we want our sports teams to learn to know that the processes are going to have to be managed in a way that it's non-abusive, non-disruptive, non-disrespectful to our society in general. And that is it what I want to discuss with our AWOKH business breakfast this morning. We're gonna set out really structure on what we require when it comes to international sports, when it comes to international television stations, when it comes to radio stations, when it comes to how all of these processes are set out and how it is being managed, and how war starts, so that everything needs to be monitored. They need to monitor when a rugby game was on, did a war start after that rugby game. And the process are gonna have to be managed in a way that is non-abusive and non-aggressive to humanity further on. That is it for me today, and for my opinion, what's AWOKH business. Follow our business opinion, follow where we are at in our seasons, and contact us if you have to, and if you require our structured opinion on where you might be challenged with at offers. And that is it with Ribea Elise today. Have an amazing Saturday for now.
Exactly, that's what I say.